She took a birthday photo with me, then said, "I'm not posting that. You ruin my aesthetic, cropping me out like I'm Clutter." In that petty flash, I saw the truth. She wanted a prop, not a partner, and I finally stopped begging to fit her perfect, performative grid. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind where everyone knew what kind of car you drove, what church you went to, and how late your porch light stayed on. My dad was a mechanic. Honest hands, cracked knuckles, never missed a day of work. My mom was the school nurse, the type who'd slip an extra sandwich into a kid's backpack when she knew they didn't have lunch money. We weren't poor exactly, but there was never room for mistakes. Every dollar had a destination before it even reached the wallet. I worked my way into an engineering program on scholarships and caffeine. Nights were for deliveries, mornings for lectures, and weekends for fixing old laptops I'd flip online. In 2018, I took a leap and started a small tech company with 2 college friends. The first years were a blur of instant ramen, code, and rejection emails. But by 2021, our software landed a contract with a major logistics firm, and for the first time I could exhale. At 33, I wasn't rich, but I was finally standing on solid ground. That's when I met Emma, nonprofit fundraiser, the kind of person who could make a stranger care about kids they'd never met. We crossed paths at a local school fair. She was radiant, not in a movie star way, but in that quiet, unshakable kind of light that makes you want to be better just by standing near it. I remember thinking, this is what peace might look like. The first cracks didn't look like cracks. More like small, understandable moments where life just got heavy. Emma's job at the nonprofit barely covered her rent and car payments, and I remember thinking, she's doing good work. It's not fair that it pays so little. When she admitted she was behind on her car insurance, I offered to cover it, just this once. Then came her rent, then groceries. I told myself I was investing in us. At first, she resisted help, or at least pretended to. "I hate taking your money," she'd say, even as she handed me another overdue bill. "You're not taking it," I'd reply. "We're a team." That word, team, became a shield she used often, especially when money was involved. When she developed chronic sinus problems from an old injury, the surgery was expensive, $12,000. She cried when I offered to pay for it, hugging me like I just saved her life. I told myself that's what love looked like. Being there when it's inconvenient. The night before her operation, she whispered, "I'll pay you back, I swear." I smiled and said, "Don't worry about it." That would become a recurring line in our relationship. Don't worry about it. After her recovery, things shifted. Her gratitude faded faster than her bruises. She'd make small comments about how easy my life must be, as if I'd stumbled into stability rather than clawed my way up to it. Her nonprofit cut half its staff, and she was among them. When her lease ended, she asked if she could stay with me for a few weeks while she looked for work. A few weeks became months. We found a modest 2-bedroom in Austin. The lease went under my name since her credit was, as she put it, a casualty of capitalism. I covered everything: rent, utilities, even her therapy sessions when she said anxiety made it hard to job hunt. She'd start every month with good intentions. "I'll contribute when my next paycheck comes in." But paychecks never came. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like ours and more like hers with me in it. She rearranged my office because it had bad energy, repainted the kitchen without asking. She started buying expensive self-care items, aromatherapy kits, yoga classes, skincare subscriptions, all charged to the joint card I'd added her to for convenience. When I gently brought it up, she said, "You told me not to stress about money. Do you want me to go back to living like I used to?" I told myself it was temporary, that she just needed to regain her footing. But the longer she stayed comfortable, the less she talked about getting back on her feet. Every job listing had an excuse. They underpay. It's too corporate. They don't value empathy. Meanwhile, I was putting in 60-hour weeks to keep my business afloat. Every time I walked through the door, she'd greet me with a list, things to fix, bills to cover, plans she wanted to fund. She'd say, "You're the stable one, babe. I just need to feel safe." I didn't realize that for Emma, safety wasn't about love or trust. It was about control, having someone else carry the weight so she never had to. The turning point came one Sunday morning. I was reviewing quarterly reports at the kitchen table when she walked in holding her laptop. "You know," she said casually, "if we get married, your business technically becomes our marital asset." She smiled like she was making small talk. I laughed it off, thinking she was joking, but her expression didn't change. That was the moment something inside me went quiet, not angry, just alert. The woman I'd fallen for at a school fair, who once said money didn't matter, was now calculating her future through my balance sheet. I didn't know it then, but the line between helping her and being used had already been crossed. And Emma, kind, soulful, debt-ridden Emma, had no intention of ever stepping back over it. When Emma finally landed a new job at a boutique marketing agency downtown, I thought things would get better. She came home glowing, waving the offer letter like it was a trophy. "It's not a huge salary," she said, "but it's creative. It's me." I meant it when I said I was proud of her. She'd spent months drifting between soul-searching and self-care. Now she finally had structure again. I hoped it would steady her. For a while, it did. She'd wake up early, pack a lunch, even talk about office projects. But something in her shifted too. Like the job wasn't grounding her, but inflating her. Within weeks, her entire personality began to pivot. The woman who used to spend Saturdays volunteering at food drives now spent them at networking brunches with people who looked allergic to carbs. Her conversations changed, less about purpose, more about presentation. Started small. "I need new clothes," she said. "The agency's really big on personal branding." Then came the hair treatments, the nails, the endless skincare subscriptions. Her wardrobe became a curated aesthetic, soft neutrals, luxury handbags, minimalist jewelry that was anything but cheap. I didn't mind her taking pride in herself, but soon she started using words like elevate and curate about everything. Her look, our apartment, even me. One night, I came home to find her rearranging our living room. My old record player and mismatched furniture were gone, replaced by sleek marble tables and abstract art prints. "The agency's doing a lifestyle feature," she said, gesturing at the space like a realtor. "They might shoot at our place. It needs to look the part." "Our place?" I asked. "Or your set?" She laughed, but her eyes didn't. "Don't be dramatic. You want me to succeed, right?" She began to orbit a new social circle. Influencers, PR reps, brand strategists, people who measured worth in likes and followers. Every dinner turned into content, every conversation into a potential collaboration. Her Instagram became a curated gallery of champagne flutes, hotel lobbies, and captions about manifesting abundance. I used to be in her posts for memories. Now I was a background accessory, a visual shorthand for stability. Her gifts changed too. On my birthday, she handed me a box wrapped in black ribbon. Inside was a designer jacket I'd never wear. "You'll look amazing in photos," she said, snapping pictures before I'd even tried it on. She tagged the brand before she hugged me. "Do you even like it?" I asked. "Of course," she said, distracted by her screen. "My followers are obsessed already." That's when I realized nothing she did was for me anymore. It was all for the algorithm. The luxury birthday party was her masterpiece. She planned it for weeks, said she wanted to celebrate the man who changed her life. I should have known better. She rented a rooftop venue, hired a photographer, and curated a guest list of people I barely knew. The invitation literally said, "An evening of elegance and success." When we arrived, it felt less like a celebration and more like a product launch. She floated from table to table in a designer gown, directing the lighting crew and reminding the DJ to start the real friendly tracks. My name was on the banner, but her face was in every photo. At one point, a stranger approached me, one of her influencer friends, maybe. "You're the tech guy, right? Emma said you're killing it lately. Must be nice funding all this." "Funding?" I asked, forcing a smile. He grinned. "Oh, come on. She said you're the brains behind her lifestyle." He gestured around the rooftop, champagne, rented flower walls, drone cameras. "You've got taste, man. She's lucky. Lucky." That word hit differently. Halfway through the night, I found Emma and asked, quietly, "How much did this cost?" She waved me off. "Don't ruin the vibe. It's all handled." "Handled how?" She rolled her eyes. "Partnerships. Okay? Some of it's sponsored, some of it's favors. Stop acting like I'm reckless." But later, when I checked our joint credit card, there it was. Charges for venue deposits, catering, photography, nearly $9,000 in total. That night, while she edited clips on her laptop, I watched her through the reflection in the glass door. The woman who once blushed when I called her generous was now calculating engagement metrics, angling her smile just right for the next post. Every now and then she'd glance at me, as if checking whether I was still in frame. And I realized I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her proof of concept, a living, breathing endorsement of her new identity. The party video went viral in her little circle. Comments called her goals, a visionary, the definition of soft luxury. Not one mention of me. She captioned it, "When you finally manifest the life you deserve." That night, lying beside her as the glow of her phone lit the room, I knew. The woman I'd fallen for at a charity fair was gone. All that remained was the mask she'd built, and I was the unwitting prop holding it in place. The room went quiet. Someone whispered, "Wait, what is that?" The big screen rolled through pictures I'd quietly collected over the past year. Emma at charity events, laughing genuinely at kids' drawings, awkward selfies on rainy days, moments where she hadn't curated a single pixel. There she was, the woman I'd loved, contrasted against the flawless Instagram persona she'd built. Emma's smile faltered. She glanced at the screen, then at me, panic creeping in. "What? Why are you showing these?" I raised my voice, calm but firm. "Because this is who you really are. Not the filtered, curated version everyone's applauding. Not the one I fund and prop up for likes. This is the Emma I met. Generous, messy human." A few of her influencer friends exchanged uneasy glances. Some started whispering. Others pulled out phones, likely to document the drama unfolding in real time. But I didn't care. I wasn't performing for them. I was performing for truth. "You've been living in my shadow for months," I continued. "Every apartment upgrade, every luxury gift, every sponsored dinner. You turned them into content, into proof of my success. Not a single thing you've done has been for us. You've made me part of your image, not your life." Her hands trembled as she clutched her phone. "Ryan, you can't do this. I planned this party for you. It's about you." I smiled faintly, the irony not lost on me. "Funny, isn't it? Because everywhere I look, all anyone sees is you. Me? I'm just the background. I'm the accessory to your narrative." Then came the quiet part that stung the most. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. I just pulled out my phone and displayed it for everyone to see. Screenshots of every charge, every gift, every extravagant booking she'd handled, all meticulously documented. Hotel suites, designer dresses, overpriced dinners, content production fees, all under my name, all paid by me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Wait! All of this?" someone murmured. Emma froze. Her phone slipped from her hand. The influencer friends looked between us, disbelief and disgust mixing. She opened her mouth, then shut it. No one had ever held her accountable like this, and suddenly, she had no script to fall back on. I clicked to the final slide. A chart I'd made showing exactly how much I'd spent over the last 12 months. Not just money, time, effort, emotional labor. $48,372 in gifts, dinners, trips, apartment upgrades. Every dollar meticulously logged. Every favor tracked. I said nothing, letting the numbers speak louder than my voice. The whispers grew into a murmur. Emma's friends began leaving, phones in hand, some shaking their heads, others quietly laughing at the audacity. Emma stood frozen, eyes darting from screen to crowd to me. I didn't mean," she started. "No," I interrupted gently. "You did mean it. You just never intended to be honest about it. I loved you, Emma. I trusted you. And you turned it all into a performance, your image, your content, your aesthetic. You don't see me. You only see what I can do for you. Her face went pale, lips quivering. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely small. Vulnerable, not in a flattering Instagram way, but real. The mask had slipped. The perfection was gone, and she had no filter to put it back. I walked past the cake, past the remaining guests, and stood beside the exit. My hand gestured lightly. If you want, you can leave quietly. We don't have to make this uglier than it already is. Emma didn't move. She couldn't. Not in front of all these people, not in front of the evidence, not in front of me. For the first time in months, she was silent. And I realized, in that moment, that silence could be louder than any argument. The room stayed silent long after I left the screen behind. I didn't look back as Emma stood frozen. The perfect image shattered in 1,000 pixels. Her friends clustered together, murmuring, some shaking their heads, others whispering in disbelief. Cameras clicked, phones buzzed. Her little influencer world, curated, filtered, staged, had imploded in front of them all. Outside, the cool night hit me like a wave. My chest was still pounding, but there was clarity in the chaos. My best friend, Alex, caught up to me, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. Man, that was savage. Absolutely savage. But kind of legendary too. I don't feel legendary, I said, keeping my voice low. I feel empty, tired of pretending that everything's fine when it's not. The car, the lease, the bills, everything that had tied me to her illusion was severed. I called the bank the next morning to remove her from joint accounts. I changed the locks, canceled subscriptions she'd managed in my name, and quietly reclaimed the life she'd co-opted. Not for revenge, not for spectacle, but for me. Emma tried to reach out over text, social media, even email. The messages ranged from pleading to angry to performative, the whole spectrum of someone who had lost her audience. I read a few, then archived the rest. I didn't respond. Silence was sharper than any argument. Over the next few weeks, the fallout became public. Some of her followers noticed the story through mutual friends' posts. Comments ranged from stunned disbelief to quiet admiration for how I handled it. People started realizing that the curated perfection on the screen rarely matches reality. That behind every manifested dream life could be a trail of someone else's labor and patience. I spent time rebuilding, not just financially but emotionally. I went back to my routine, the office, late-night coding sessions, weekend hikes. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected and even returned to small volunteer work. A reminder of why I'd fallen for the person Emma had once been. Weeks later, I ran into a few of her former friends at a cafe. They approached cautiously, avoiding eye contact with her now distant figure in the background of their Instagram stories. I just wanted to say, one whispered, that what you did, it was necessary. I think a lot of people don't see it, but it was fair. I hadn't framed it as justice, but I understood the sentiment. Emma's world of filters and props had collapsed under the weight of truth. Mine had expanded under the weight of finally being honest with myself. The final text from her came 2 months later. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I was already living it, calm, quiet, free. That night, I sat on the balcony of the apartment I'd chosen for myself, the city lights stretching out like tiny constellations. I could feel the tension leaving my shoulders, the weight of manipulation dissolving. No grand gestures, no social media spectacle. Just me, my hard-earned stability, and the knowledge that the story I'd lived, messy and raw, was mine again. And in that quiet, I realized the truth. Sometimes the hardest victories are the ones you win without making anyone else lose. The next 48 hours were an echo chamber of panic and denial. My phone filled with messages that read like emotional whiplash. Crying voicemails at 3 a.m., furious texts an hour later, then the long, self-pitying essays about betrayal and, how could you humiliate me like that? Every tone of guilt-tripping known to humankind arrived in my inbox. I didn't reply to a single one. By day 3, Emma went public. A 10-minute video on her socials titled, My Truth. She sat in perfect lighting, face powdered, tears perfectly staged, and claimed I had financially controlled her, that the birthday video was revenge for her independence. She said she'd been trapped in a relationship where generosity was weaponized. It might have worked if half the party hadn't already uploaded their own footage. The internet doesn't always side with the truth, but this time it did. People saw the receipts, the charges, the recordings. Comments flipped fast, from sympathy to scrutiny. Girl, he paid for everything. You cropped him out of his own birthday. Maybe accountability isn't abuse. Her following cratered within a week. Sponsors quietly vanished. A few of her influencer friends issued the digital equivalent of running for the hills. We wish her the best. Translation, you're radioactive now. She moved her things out one gray Thursday morning. I stayed in the office, left the keys with the building manager, and told him to text me when she was gone. By evening, the apartment was clean and strangely still. The scent of her perfume had already faded. I changed the locks, closed the joint card, and met with my lawyer to finalize every loose end. When the paperwork was done, I felt something I hadn't in months: space. For a while, I didn't date. I didn't even talk about her. I just rebuilt quietly. The company was growing. My health was better. My peace unshaken. I started running again, volunteering at small schools, the same kind of places where I first met Emma. Except this time, I was doing it for the kids, not the illusion. 3 months later, an unexpected email arrived. Hi Ryan. I just wanted to thank you for your donations over the years. We're relaunching the after-school program you helped fund. And I'd love to buy you a coffee sometime. No pitches, I promise. Sarah. Sarah was the director of the nonprofit Emma used to work for, calm, composed, with a humor that didn't need an audience. We met at a small cafe on a rainy afternoon. The conversation drifted easily from work to books to the weirdness of modern life. No filters, no performance, just two people talking about things that actually mattered. We saw each other again the next week, then the week after that. No grand gestures, no curated moments. She laughed at the quiet things: bad coffee, squeaky chairs, my stories about coding disasters. I realized how rare that was. Laughter without agenda. When we finally went to dinner together, I wore the same old blazer Emma once called too plain for photos. Halfway through the meal, Sarah brushed a crumb from my sleeve and smiled. That jacket's got character, she said. I love it. And that's when it hit me. Real love doesn't need filters, hashtags, or a perfectly lit frame. It doesn't need a script or an audience. It's quiet, steady, unedited. It's the kind of love that looks at you, flaws, wrinkles, thrift store blazer and all, and says you're enough. For years, I'd been chasing approval disguised as affection. Now, for the first time, I wasn't performing. I wasn't cropped out of the picture or edited to fit someone else's feed. I was finally in the picture, my own picture. And for the first time in a long while, it felt real. Felt like home.